Okay, we're in business.
We're in business, okay. First up, 100 Riverside Boulevard, Mr. Kim's Lounge, LLC.
Well, actually, 100 was withdrawn.
Oh, that was one-
100, that's the one that was withdrawn.
Okay, so that was easy. Okay, so next
Get that
is,
in the notes.
Hmm?
Nothing.
Yeah, it was a last minute thing, Josh.
yeah, I actually printed it out and I'm not looking at it, so that's my bad. Okay, 242 West 76th Street, the Wallace. Who's presenting? I think that was Niv.
Yeah, we have a need.
Mr. Dorn, you have his hand up.
Am I all set to go? My hand is raised. I don't know if you want.
Yes, yes, please, talk to us.
Great. Welcome. Thank you for having me. My name is Phil Dorn. I'm an attorney with Pizetsky and Bookman. With me is Niv, who you guys seem to have met, the owner of the Wallace Hotel. While this location is a hotel, this application is actually just for a lobby bar and a connected subterranean event space.
I'm sorry, Phil. Forgive me for interrupting. Can you provide your email address for the record?
I'm sorry?
Can you provide your email address for the record?
Oh, my email address, sure. That's Phil, Phil, at PB, that's P as in Paul, B as in boy, .law.
Thank you.
Yeah, continue, please.
All right, great. So like I was just saying, this is an application for a lobby bar and a connected subterranean event space within the Wallace Hotel on 76th Street. The event space downstairs will just be for private corporate events, conferences, things of that nature. The entire hotel itself will not be licensed, just this first floor and the lower level. These guys purchased what was the Milburn Hotel about 4 years ago. And after operating under that name for about a year, they decided that the hotel was due for a pretty big facelift. So the last 3 years or so, they underwent a gut renovation of the entire establishment. They reopened in October. And since October, they've seen a lot of success. And they're just hoping that the final piece will be adding food and beverage to a hotel that badly needed it. The last thing I'll say is that the hours are pretty reasonable. It's 1 a.m. across the board. Music is recorded music only. Upstairs, we did put down on the application that there would be live music and DJs. That'll only be for the downstairs portion. For the private events that I just spoke about, none of the live music or DJs would be upstairs in the lobby. I'm sure you guys will have questions, so I'll turn it over to you.
First question, how many are going to be seated at the lobby bar?
Niv, do you know the answer to that off the top of your head?
Yes, we have 55 seats, about 55 seats.
Ooh.
And again, it's I wouldn't call it a bar. It's more like a lounge, like like a living room.
Yeah, I know, there are restaurants that, I work in Midtown. There are a lot of hotels appropriately in Midtown in a commercial area that have lobby bars.
Okay.
I'm just wondering about 76th Street. How close, you're closer to are you closer to Broadway than West End Avenue?
Correct. We're a second building from Broadway.
Okay, so you're really close to Broadway. Okay, that's helpful. Anyone else have some questions?
I just had, yeah, and so 55 seats on the lounge, that's on the ground level, and then you have live music and DJ on the lower level. Can you just familiarize us with the number of seats on the lower?
We are obligated by the COO, not more than 74 people for downstairs.
So 74 is only where you would have the live music on or DJs on your application. 55
Right.
seats on. Okay, so it's 74 plus 55. Well, actually, I
Well,
don't know
the
if-
occupancy
55 seats at the-
upstairs will be 74 as well. It's 55 seats, but a total occupancy of 74 upstairs. It's 74 on both levels.
Right, so you're not going for a
So we've
PA,
got
right?
Correct.
So
No, yeah.
understood. Okay, that's all I had. Thank you.
so this is the upstairs that we're looking at here?
Yep.
How big a space is this?
It's about 1,800 square feet upstairs and then similar downstairs.
That's pretty big, 1,800 square feet. Okay,
Just one note, that's including the reception area. If you can scroll up, you can see the lobby desk. You see the receptionist. It's the entire lobby, not just the lounge area.
so but the lounge area would extend, the lounge area would extend to would extend behind the front desk, correct?
Correct. You can see it in the layout. Mhm.
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, I think the point that Niv is trying to make is that the entire first floor is 1,800 square feet. And yes, the entire first floor would be licensed, but it's not 1,800 square feet of lounge space and seating area.
So you're gonna have a piano up there, so you'll have acoustic music, is that correct?
Please disregard the piano. It's not there and it's not gonna be there. It was a design idea, but it's not happening.
Is there anything else that was a design idea that's not happening?
Yeah, there is another sofa over there.
And where's the sofa?
There is another sitting area instead of the piano.
Okay. So it's by the front entrance.
That's not the front entrance.
Here's your front desk, correct?
The front desk is here. Like if you see where it says front desk as you step
Yeah,
into the entrance to the left? No, that's not it. That's the stairs downstairs.
Oh, I see.
You see where the entrance to the building, as you turn
All the way
left,
on the left.
as you see on the left side. No,
If
You
you,
see
the
what-
bottom right is where the desk and the reception area
yes, here you go.
Okay, so the entrance is,
is just above that on the right side. That's 76th Street.
okay, that's 76th Street where your entrance is down here. Okay, and then all of this is, how much of this is on West End Avenue? I'm just wondering the pushback.
None of it.
None of it? Oh, because it's right in the middle of the block, it's mid-block.
It's the second building from Broadway.
From the Broadway, then I got you, okay. And it's only until 1 AM and it's an amenity for the hotel.
Correct.
Did anybody else want, do we have some more comments, folks? I see Raina here, Raina?
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry I'm not on screen. I'm just trying to finish dinner. It's an amenity for the hotel, but it'll be open to the general public. Is that correct, Neve?
Yes, that's correct. Sorry to answer for Neve, but yes.
Okay. And thank you, Phil. And where are you anticipating, well, how are you handling parking flow? As this, in the event that this catches on and people start coming from around the city to either enjoy the lounge or the downstairs space, particularly for corporate events, people are not going to be traveling primarily by mass transportation. So how are you accounting, like what's the plan for drop-offs? Because there's parking in this area.
So we have a deal with 2 parking spaces that we are working with to have a valet parking coming and pick up the car from the hotel, or have the guests go directly to the parking and then walk. There is a parking, the one that we have a deal is iPark on 79th between West End and Broadway. That's the closest.
Okay.
So you've got Raina.
Yeah, thank you. Just a few more questions. So you have arrangements with 2 parking garages, which is terrific. The liquor license, is this an application for a liquor license for both the lobby, the lounge, as well as downstairs?
Yes, it's all one contiguous space. There's an
Okay.
internal staircase that takes it down. So it'll be one license for those 2 floors and just those 2 floors.
Okay, great. I would really encourage, I don't know how many people are here from the community, but I would really encourage you, Phil, to attend the full board meeting because I anticipate that outreach to the community will take place between now and the full board meeting in the first Tuesday in February. And so you would want to be on hand because I think there may be more questions, similar, but perhaps different questions. So I would encourage you to attend the full board meeting.
Absolutely. We're happy to do that.
Good,
Yeah.
good, yeah. Traditionally, it's the side street hotels having lounges have been controversial.
Mhm.
But I think because of your proximity to Broadway, they may, we may avoid some of that. Josh Cohn,
I
Josh,
just want to say, I believe that parking or drop off is not within the purview of what we're voting on right now. Am I correct?
not at all.
Okay, just making sure.
No, but it's a valid question that Arena has, because you're right, but honestly, what I've seen, again, I see this a lot in Midtown. People do take cabs and they take Ubers and that's how they get around because you're in.
They do to every other single restaurant and bar in New York City.
Yeah, that's true too.
Yeah, but I'm on the board representing the community, and I think
So am I.
will live in the area, what may be concerned about the traffic that this new lounge and corporate space might generate. And I think it's a responsible question to ask how they plan to manage that, Josh.
I just wanted to be clear that it's not within the purview of voting for the liquor license.
Yeah, it's not part
That's
of the.
all.
No, I realize that,
Yeah.
but this space will have impact. And I think it's a legitimate and fair question to ask whether it's related to the liquor license or not.
And
I'm not saying it's not legitimate. I'm just making a point that it's not related.
But we all, absolutely. And here's the thing, we see that they've come up with a very viable solution. So now,
Yes, exactly.
anyone else from the community who would like, community board or community?
And by the way, I don't think the committee should ever be that narrowly focused. Thank you.
Okay, as a point of order, anybody that wants to be heard needs to raise their digital hand to be recognized.
Okay, so nobody's raising their hands.
Okay, so call the question.
We'll call the question. Okay.
Okay, committee members, all those in favor, raise your hand, please. Your digital hand, please.
Raised my hand a little late, just to make a comment.
That time has passed, Robert. So
No.
you're getting ready to vote.
I couldn't find my cursor. Okay,
Question, Anthony, are you in our committee now?
I am, yes.
Okay, because I was not aware of that.
Well, Anthony Thomas, you're on our committee?
I am, yes.
Hey, welcome.
Thank you so
Cool.
much.
And thank you for coming on time. Groovy. Okay.
My pleasure.
Okay, so let's see. So let me count the vote. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
Okay.
I think that's all of us. Okay, so the committee vote is 9000. And we lower the hands. Okay, non-committee members, so those in favor?
1, 2, 3,
1, 2,
3.
3 with Robert, okay.
Okay. Seema is around here.
Yeah, so let me lower those hands on them. Anybody against? Apparently not. Anybody abstaining? We have 2.
Abstaining for cause? It's usually done.
That would be not eligible. So the vote is 2020 on non-committee members.
2020 or 3020?
All right. Yes, I'm sorry. You're correct. 3020.
Thank you.
Okay.
So let's move on to 2330 Broadway.
I'm sorry. So that was a vote of approval? I didn't
Yes.
quite catch.
Yes, yes, it was.
That was a vote of approval.
All right.
But you
Unanimous.
should still, honest to gosh, you should still come to full board. It will,
Yeah, we will. We certainly will.
okay, good idea.
All
And you
right.
too, and
Thank
Zip,
you,
I'll
everyone.
call
Have a
you,
lovely
I'll call you
evening.
Zip. Right. Okay,
Take care. Thank you.
thank you. Have a good evening. Unless you want to stick around. So who's presenting for 2330 Broadway?
Hi, Linda. I'm Tyler Swiggett. I'll kick us off. I'm a project manager with Hines. We're a co-owner and the developer of 2330 Broadway. It's a senior living development on 85th and Broadway.
Mhm.
Construction's going well, and we're due to open up in the first half of 2023. As a part of the operations of the community, we'll be providing dining services for our residents and their guests. And as a part of that, we're applying for this liquor license. Today with me, I have Denise Falco and Caitlin Rogers with Sunrise Senior Living, the team that's going to be operating the community.
Great.
And I'm going to, Denise, I'll kick it to you just to go into some detail on the operations itself. I think, yeah.
I think before we start, I think Josh is going to need your email addresses, folks.
Oh, yeah. Josh, it's my name. You can see right there, Tyler Swiggett, tyler.swiggett @hines.com, HINES.
Yeah, we have that one. Denise?
Sure, it's my name as well. So it's denise.falco @sunriseseniorliving.com.
Same idea for me, Caitlin.Rogers @sunriseseniorliving.com.
Thank you.
So I'll jump in, Tyler, if it's okay now. We just thought it would be helpful if we gave a quick 30-second overview of Sunrise, so you had a little bit better of an understanding of what will happen within the building. So we are an operator in the assisted living world. We've been operating for a little over 40 years now. We operate in 274 communities in the United States and Canada. We serve over 28,000 residents presently and growing. We have a little bit more than 22,000 team members who serve these residents, and we offer a full range of personalized services, including independent living, assisted living, memory care, and skilled nursing. Specific to this location, we'll be offering assisted living and memory care. This will be our second location in Manhattan. We currently, we just opened our first, so almost a month exactly now at East 56th and Lexington, where we have the same services offered, memory care and assisted living. And within the building, one of the larger scopes and services that we offer is a full service dining program for our residents who live with us. And that's a program that Caitlin oversees. And so I'm going to pass it off to Caitlin for her to talk a little bit about that.
Great, thanks Denise, and thanks everyone for having us here. As Denise mentioned, our dining services program offered at this community will be similar to our program offered at our other assisted living communities. We offer our residents 3 meals a day, access to healthy snacks and beverages throughout the day. And as part of that meal service, we provide beer and wine service with the main meals of the day. This we consider, the communities are our residents' homes. So just like they would have enjoyed a glass of wine with dinner in their homes prior to coming to Sunrise, we invite them to enjoy a glass of wine with their dinners with Sunrise. The same services are offered to the guests of our residents, and they would be able to participate in the beer and wine service as well while they're visiting our communities.
So yeah, with that, I think we just open up to questions.
Yeah.
And I think you're muted. Linda, I think you're muted.
Oh, my goodness. See, anyway, I've watched this go up. I'm just curious, how many seats are we talking about? How big is the dining room?
It's approximately 136 seats with right around 28 tables, give or take. I did send an interior diagram.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's on the screen now, so that'll give you a good sense, Linda.
Thank you.
Which floor is this?
That's the first floor.
Grade level.
Yep.
Got it. Is it open to public too, or only to residents?
No, only to residents.
You know, when this used to, when I was a kid, and this is very nostalgic for me, they always had beautiful dining rooms. My grandmother was in a senior living home that was quite lovely, and it was a hotel. not a residence, but a hotel. And they had these beautiful, beautiful ballroom dining rooms. And I thought, that's one of those great amenities that mean a lot. So, and we would meet her there every Sunday.
It is one of the main areas that our residents and families, to your point, gather and spend a lot of time, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Doc, you have a question?
Yeah, so you've been to our board before on other matters regarding construction and otherwise. And I think another senior supportive housing facility came before us for their liquor license on West End Avenue, the Esplanade. I just heard you say that the residents would enjoy a beer or wine, and I don't have your paperwork right in front of me. This is full liquor, or is this just wine and beer?
The application's being made for full liquor.
Okay. And I understand that the technical need for you to apply for this license in order for you to dispense it. So this is not open to the public, but you would be selling the alcoholic beverages to guests. This would be for purchase. They would generate a bill for it.
There's generally a combination approach where our residents are provided a complimentary beverage with their main meal. And then there's an additional opportunity to purchase a bottle of wine that might be a higher end bottle, or if they have guests joining them and want additional glasses.
Understood.
There's nothing more elegant than an 85-year-old with a martini.
We should all be so lucky.
Are there any?
I'm hoping.
I realize that this is a different context than most commercial establishments, but on your application, do you have hours of operation listed on your method of operation?
Actually, they do. They have a 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
I suspect they won't be drinking at 7 a.m. Okay. Any other comments? Raise your hand. Oh, we have 2 participants raising their hands.
Well, Robert, go ahead.
Yeah, this is, I think I'm all for wine and beer service, bar none, but I'm curious, since it's a senior residence, do you have any restrictions for health reasons for who may not order that bottle of wine and a tankard of beer? And are there any kind of restrictions, or is that left up to the nutritionist for the family to be responsible for that? Are there any liabilities if I go in there at my 79 years old and go over the top and collapse? Just curious. But I'm supporting this, but I'm just curious about that.
No, it's an excellent question. And the restrictions are made between the physician and the resident. The physician, if there is a medical restriction that alcohol intake would need to be limited, or if there's an implication with a medication that the resident is also needing to be on, then we would have those orders from the physician and accommodate that.
Gotcha.
I would also add, from a regulatory standpoint, though, there is a specific regulation around resident choice. So while we can highly recommend, there's conversations with doctors and family members as such, we still provide the resident choice to make the decisions for themselves.
I can't think of one doctor that would say no to a Barolo 15 or 12.
Thank you, Robert.
Hi, greetings. Hello, and I just want to say hello to my colleagues on the board. I recognize many of the faces. I'm here speaking on behalf of God at Riverside, as well as a neighbor. I live on 85th between Broadway and Amsterdam, so I've watched the building go up over the last 2 years while working largely from home. God at Riverside usually doesn't come out in support of opening new bars. This is kind of new for us, but we've come out in support of this particular establishment because I think they've already established themselves as good neighbors in our community. They certainly were having an impact on the restaurants on the block, and I think they wanted to help them out because the block was closed for periods of time during the construction. But they purchased quite a few meals that we were able to distribute to the residents in our supported housing, just as building a relationship with people here in the community. They were graciously appreciated by the tenants at the Senate and the Capitol Hall. So in turn, we're fully in support of amenities for the residents in their building, and we just want to speak in support of their application.
Thank you, Larry. I'll probably see you on the block because I'm there too.
Yeah, I've been here 43 years now, so.
I haven't. I've been in the neighborhood 47.
Oh, okay, you got me beat. I'm still a newcomer.
Okay, I call the question then.
Let's call the question, folks.
All those in favor, committee members, raise your hand. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So the committee vote is 10-0-0-0. Let me lower the hands. Now non-committee members. All those in favor? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that non-committee member is 5-0-0-0.
Thank you. Okay.
So that brings over 953 Amsterdam Avenue.
Thank you, everyone.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Alejandro Loveras. I'm the accountant for Tropical Sensation located at 953 Amsterdam Avenue. And mine is our application is a lot more simpler. We're applying for a new license because last year during the pandemic, my clients renegotiated their lease with their landlord, and for whatever reason, the landlord wanted a new entity formed. So we had to get a new tax ID and new sales tax certificate of authority. And because we had to do all this process, we have to apply for a new liquor license as well. But it's the same owners, same ownership, same family has been there since 2007. Nothing's changing with that. It's just a matter of going through the technical stuff with SLA to get approved for a new liquor license for the new entity.
So it's really kind of a corporate change, and that's it.
Yep.
It's out of that, and yeah.
And SLA tried to help us, but they said if you have a new tax ID, it requires a new application. So.
So what kind of music would you be providing?
All just recorded music. It's a full service restaurant. No nightclub, no dancing, none of that stuff. So it's just recorded music to be playing over while you're eating inside the restaurant.
What is the cross street there? I know I should know it.
It's
Oh, 107. Oh, 107, like
Yep.
written on the sheet. Yes. Long day. Long day.
It's still not over.
You betcha.
Okay, Peter?
We have to hear from Peter.
Peter,
Peter Austin.
hi. So this is a great restaurant. It's worthwhile visiting. When they took it over years ago, they redid the interior decor with craftspeople doing really beautiful job. It's a family. Jocelyn Ramirez is on the call, and it's her brother and her parents, and they serve large portions that you don't want to eat in one sitting, I don't think. I don't. I know better, but it's good food. So come up and visit. They're good people.
No.
Thanks, Peter. So.
For the record, Peter, you're right, the Amsterdam Business Improvement District?
Columbus, Amsterdam bid.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay, so I don't see any hands, so let's call the question. All those in favor, committee members?
I'm raising my damn hand. Okay.
Okay, so that vote is 10-0-0-0. So non-committee members, all those in favor? So that vote is 5-0-0-0. The vote passes.
Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Jocelyn's going to stick around for the curbside discussion.
Good. I was going to suggest that because this is going to be an in-depth discussion that will eventually materialize into a resolution between three of the pertinent committees comprising BCI, transportation, and land use. But for now, this is the purview of land use of BCI because we work with restaurants. So.
Okay, before we start with this topic, I want to say a couple words. And after I speak, I would like Andrew to speak to the topic in whatever capacity he wants to. This is something I mentioned at transportation last night. We currently have the emergency program, open restaurant emergency program, and the city, in the middle of the pandemic, decided to make this program permanent. By making the program permanent, they wanted to have every restaurant have whatever opportunity they could use to get seating and customers, so they could be viable economically and aid on the economic recovery of the city. Having said that, my own opinion, and I know not everybody agrees with this, is that because they made the program permanent, they basically are saying every restaurant has a right to have a sidewalk cafe and a street seating, provided that they fall within the guidelines. So what we used to do before with Consumers Affairs, where the restaurants, when they wanted to have the sidewalk cafe, would come to us and they would have to have our approval to have the sidewalk cafe.
Right.
That is no longer valid. I don't believe we're going to have that power of review any longer. That's gone, because every restaurant will have the right to have their sidewalk cafe and street seating. What we can do, and what I would like the focus of our committee to be, is to weigh into what the guidelines and regulations will be. And that's where we have to focus as so that we can put our input will be on making that the best we can make. Having said that, I know Andrew has his capacity with Hospitality Alliance. He sometimes works with the is in different panels and groups that maybe can shed a little light on that on what's going on. I would presume that the new guidelines will be somewhat based on what the current guidelines are. So go ahead, Andrew.
Great. Thanks, Christian. And yes, you reference, and I always say it on these calls, but just to clarify, I work in a professional capacity representing the restaurant industry, but I don't represent individual applicants in front of the board. So I guess I'd say, generally speaking, I think these are important conversations, and I know different committees have been having different conversations about the future of outdoor dining. Correct, Christian, we are currently operating under the Temporary Emergency Pandemic Open Restaurants Program. That is anticipated to continue throughout the third quarter of this year. At that time, it's suggested that the permanent program will be finalized, and then restaurants would apply to that program, and there would be some transition period into the permanent program. The requirements will be different than the temporary emergency program. There will certainly be similar aspects, but all of that has not been defined yet. One comment you made about review, I don't suspect, but I don't want to give any confirmation one way or the other, that community boards still would not review outdoor dining in some capacity. I suspect there would still be some sort of community review like we were used to with the Sidewalk Cafe program. Nonetheless, putting that aside, but connected to it, applicants would still come in front of us for their liquor licenses. So all of those applicants would come in front of us. And as you know, or those who are on the committee or participated in these meetings know, we often ask questions that may be unrelated or not directly related to the liquor application, like where are you going to park your bikes if you're going to do third-party delivery, or other questions that were mentioned earlier about traffic diversion, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess that's the long way of saying that all the final details have yet to be defined. There's a few things that have to happen. One, the city council still needs to approve the text amendment that was passed last year by city planning that would remove sidewalk cafes from the zoning resolution, allowing a clean slate to create a new program. Many neighborhoods in the city, probably more or less so in our community than in others, were restricted from having outdoor dining because of the zoning resolution. This will allow sidewalk cafes in more of these areas. The second part after the city council approves or declines the proposal for that city planning passed, would be the city council proposes legislation that would be an outline or framework of what the future of the open restaurants program looks like. The application process, where they can be located, what they have to look like, really the broad parameters of the program. If that is then passed by the city council and signed into law by the mayor, the agency, which it appears would be the Department of Transportation, would be the agency that oversees the sidewalk, or I should say the open restaurants program, that it can include the sidewalk and the roadway. They would have to go through rulemaking, which is another public process where the public can opine. And that gets into more of like the nuts and bolts of the application process and the specifics of the program. So we would have the opportunity to comment on the legislation that is in the council, which requires public hearings. And then after that, if that's enacted, you would have public comment on whatever the regulatory agency, probably the Department of Transportation, proposes. So that would be 2 times in addition to after we commented last time at city planning, or you could have commented at city planning on the future of the program. So that's what's happening. The timeline is for things to be finalized by the 3rd quarter or so of this year, meaning that it would probably start happening fast, within the next couple of months, the legislation that's proposed by the council and then the rulemaking. So what I've said to some of you independently and then collectively on these calls is, I think the committee and the board as a whole can either choose to proactively submit comments on what we think that permanent program should look like.
Right.
And or then wait until the details of the program are proposed and comment on that.
Okay, I'm hoping tonight that we will come up with some ideas so that we can participate in the planning before it's planned, because we know DOT, once they start planning, they're kind of tone deaf. And I think people on this committee and on our community board, and we've got 3 bid directors here whom we'd like to hear from. They're, this is the grassroots, and they need to know what needs to be done before they even make the plans. So that's what I'm hoping we accomplish tonight.
Got it. So I hope that was a framework that you were looking for, Christian. I'm happy to answer any questions or, position it differently, but.
Well, thank you, Andrew. I wanted that kind of overview. If I need you.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Why don't we give an opportunity to the bid directors to speak? And
Okay.
Then we can take comments and questions. Let's start with Monica. Actually, and Nicole Painter.
We're calling Monica Bloom.
Either one.
Oh, hi, everyone. I don't have too much to say. I was really interested in the Sunrise Senior Center, though, I have to say. Since I just had a big birthday yesterday. In any event, we don't have too many, too many restaurants that are doing outside dining. I do worry about DOT being the lead agency on this issue, because I think they have so much on their plate. And I just hope that, that there's a coordination of everything else that goes out on the streets that DOT is responsible for. So, we have bike racks and wayfinding signage and all sorts of things. And I worry about that. I think that there is not a coordinated effort to make sure that the public realm is handled like the public realm. So I think that's our biggest concern. We have very few restaurants that are doing open restaurants because it's just not a neighborhood that, you know, our streets aren't really conducive. The few that are on Broadway happen to have extremely wide sidewalks, so it's not a problem. And we have a few others, but I just think that, and I think this is what you guys can do so well, make sure that everything is, you have to look at the big picture. And so we have asked, the bids have asked in the past for a czar for the public realm. I'm not sure that we're going to get that in this administration, but I really think that otherwise it's sort of a jumble, you know, it's composting and this. And so that's our biggest concern, I think, that everything should be coordinated. But I think the others, my two colleagues from the north, have many more restaurants that have taken advantage of this. So they probably have lots more to say.
Thank
so,
you.
But thank you.
Nicole?
Sure. Hi. Thank you. I guess I would just like to speak mainly in support of the Open Restaurants program in general and how much it's been sort of a savior to all of our restaurants and allowed them to stay open at the hardest times. And just a reminder that the pandemic is far from over and restaurants are still really struggling. They lost a hard holiday season with the Omicron variant hitting. So in general, just how important they are to the survival of our restaurants and the recovery for which probably will be many years to come. I think I was on the transportation call last night and there were some talks about the bad sheds or the ones that look really bad. And I just wanted to point out that a lot of them look really good and have followed the rules really well. So not to sort of have a bad view because of some bad actors. And that knowing when the program is permanent, that it will be a much stricter rules probably, and people can really plan for a more permanent, not permanent structure, but with knowing that the program's not going to change, I guess, at any moment, and can invest some more money into it. And then a few issues that we've talked about before, but we have the bike lane on Columbus Avenue. So the restaurants that are on that side have to sort of navigate that bike lane, be it their customers and their staff, and it can be pretty unsafe. So I'm looking forward to see what DOT will have to say about how to navigate those bike lanes, if anything will change. That's just sort of top of mind as it becomes permanent. And then in general, I've just had a few complaints from community members, conversely, about sort of the sidewalk space and restaurants coming a little bit further. So just having sort of some stricter rules or a little bit of enforcement as well to make sure that our sidewalks are still navigable for people using wheelchairs or things like that. But in general, we're in full support of the program.
Thank you. Yep. And I guess, Peter, you're always with us, but let's hear from you because I think you probably have the majority of the restaurants in your catchment area.
Got it. So Peter Arnson with the Columbus Amsterdam bid. We're north of 96th Street going up to 110th. We do have open streets happening these weekends on Saturdays and Sundays from 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Amsterdam between 106 and 110. We have, as Nicole was saying, this has been a lifeline to a number of restaurants and has made a huge difference over the last year and a half. That being said, the guidelines have varied and it depends on the inspector coming out and where they're from as to the guidance that people are getting. We've had a couple of restaurants that have changed their structures 3 times. We've got one that has a artist produced mural on it that they had to cut down because they were given contrary guidance at a later point. So it really has been a mixed bag, and it's something that I will be interested to hear how they're developing it. Andrew has been a great resource, and really appreciate his involvement with the restaurants. I'm going to need more of that. we have problems. We figuring out how to pick up the garbage, how to sort the garbage between residential and commercial. The city wanted all the restaurants to go to organics collection, and that has not happened yet. It may be coming. It remains to be seen, but that might help with the rat problem. But as it is, sometimes I've got a pile of garbage, and then we've also got dumping. So yes, rats are a problem. Rats are a problem underneath some of the structures where they have floors. It's something that people are working on and trying to figure out how to best deal with it. Nobody wants rats in the neighborhood or around their restaurant. So that is an issue. There's a number of issues. People may have built a little bit too close to the bike lane so that it's tight for garbage trucks to get through, or the street sweeper. And we're still trying to sort out some of that. So there are a number of issues, and the community board certainly should have a place in addressing some of those. You've got people on the ground in a hopefully more available situation than DOT. But it remains to be seen how this is all going to get sorted out. DOT has done a tremendous job of working with us, and so I will not say anything against them from that standpoint. They just they went out on the line for us because we're a truck route and a bus route, and ostensibly we should never have been doing this because of that. But they figured out how to make it work, and it really has made a difference for a number of really small restaurants. So to sum it up, you would say that it's been a boon to your area, but there have to be better guidelines so that your constituents don't have to rebuild their sheds 3 different times. I would love to see it be more of a situation where it was, instead of being fines or being told that they had to change things within 24 hours or 12 hours or 36 hours, that they were being worked with. And it really is a work in progress. I mean, nobody has all the answers. And they're trying as hard as anybody else is, so. Okay, so less punitive. Thank you, Peter. So we've had some hands up, Christian.
Irana,
yeah.
Thank you. Andrew, thank you so much for that overview. It was so informative. I really appreciate it. I may sound like I'm repeating myself, particularly for Christian and for Doug, who were at the Transportation Committee meeting last night. And Andrew really spoke to this towards the ends of his remarks around what is more prudent for the community board to submit recommendations based on feedback from the restaurateurs and the bid leadership in advance, or whether we respond to the new standards and guidelines. And I'm sort of mixed, because I think that we've lived with the restaurant structures in the street for almost 2 years. And I think we have a lot that we could share with transportation in advance. But I suspect that the train has already left the station, right? And they are already in the process of establishing new guidelines and standards. And so I'm just wondering if it's more prudent for us to respond to those guidelines. Also, last night, I expressed that I really think it's important that that this conversation, and you spoke to this, Linda, that we have a joint conversation with our colleagues in land use and transportation. I had also mentioned preservation. I know Doug has some questions about that, but in my neighborhood, there's one restaurant that has built a shed that takes up almost the entire block in the street. He has probably tripled his indoor space out in the street, and in effect has built a barricade across the avenue. So in effect, if you're on the west side of the street and you turn to look east, you don't even see the storefronts anymore.
Which restaurant is that, Irena?
It's called Bodega. It's just astonishing that, and I know that they're within the guidelines, they're permitted to go to their neighbors and I guess, get permission to use the outdoor street space that their neighbors who are not restaurants, by the way, are not using, but they have obliterated the streetscape. And if that were to happen in the base of a landmark building, that would be of interest to, and that's why I raised this issue yesterday. But really my point tonight is just to ask that we, what I'm afraid might happen is that this committee will come out of this with a resolution recommending things that perhaps our colleagues on the other committees might not. And I just wish that we would coordinate our comments and we don't work at cross purposes. So that would just be my comment. I know that we have a lot of information that we've gleaned from the restaurants operating, but I feel at this point, it might be more prudent for us to just wait and see and then react or respond, but to do it with in partnership with our colleagues in transportation and land use. Thank you.
Irena, thank you. I certainly agree with what you're saying. I do think that we do have a point of view and we should start putting together, just from this conversation, some of our own recommendations and certainly being proactive. That's what I do for a living. That's what I believe in. That's my philosophy. So there will be a point when we will be getting the information from DOT and their plan, and we will react to it too. But I think what we can do now is contribute to the conversation so that they have an idea of what they're facing too. I mean, we have the world's greatest resource here with Andrew Ridgie, but we've also got all of these people. We are a community and we have a point of view, and we work with restaurants, and that's a point of view that may differ from land use and transportation, but we are one community and we will coordinate with all three committees.
And can I just add one more thing that I also think it's really important as we have these conversations, and I know there was a question in the email that went around earlier as to whether the restaurants had been notified of this conversation. I just really think it's so vitally important that as we have these conversations at the committee level, that we work with our staff, with the team in the office to make sure that community residents are also notified. And I know you mentioned NYC Link, Linda, but we really are going to have to think about reaching out to managing agents of buildings and just making sure that our neighbors are aware of these conversations. I don't think we should be afraid of the feedback. I think it's going to be overwhelmingly in support with some changes. But I do think we cannot continue to have these conversations without the benefit of our neighbors.
I appreciate that point of view, Irena. Thank you. And so now we're going to
wait. I'd like to add to that. We, just to start, we all decided to work at the committee level just to start with, but we are not going to come up with a resolution that will be just our resolution. Eventually, it's going to be a board resolution. And I know that we have plans to have public sessions on this also. So, and we should actually do both. We can be both proactive and reactive. There's no reason why we cannot provide feedback to the powers that be ahead of time. And definitely when they come up with the guidelines, we're going to have to then also provide feedback at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, the culmination is a joint committee at town hall. So yes, and we will be doing outreach. And you're right, managing agents, it's huge. And it is a team effort. So thank you.
Thank you.
So Louise, I know you've had your hand up, and thank you. And thank you again for the other night. Thank you for hearing about grid rewards.
They were really interesting. First of all, I come at this from a slightly different angle. I am from city planning and actually worked on and wrote.
Yeah, you're muted. You got muted accidentally, Louisa.
Louisa,
you just
Got
muted
it.
yourself.
There you go.
Just like you threw me off the thing the other night.
Yeah, my granddaughter does this better than I do. Just, I was going to say, I come at this from a slightly different angle because I work for city planning, and actually,
You muted yourself
You
again.
muted yourself again, my dear. Louisa, you're muted. Whatever you're hitting.
There you go.
Yeah.
I had a book on my keyboard. That must have been what
That
was
would do
doing
it.
it.
Yes.
That was very odd. From the beginning, sorry.
You work for city planning.
Yeah, and so I know the legislation on sidewalk cafes very well, and I wrote part of it and amended it and actually did a lot of the field work that was on it. The first thing is, it was absolutely brilliant, whoever came up with this program, which really saved the restaurants. It was amazing because nobody was going into a restaurant. But my question is, what is the need for them anymore once we go back to indoor dining? We are giving away the roadways, we are giving away our control of our neighborhood. City planning, the zoning resolution gave us the power to discuss and advise and review every single application for a sidewalk cafe. We have now lost that. And that is very, very important. We do not have it. DOT is going to have this, and they are not going to come to us. DOT is not known as that kind of agency. So the first thing is, I don't know why we're going to have it, because presumably everyone's going to be able to go indoors. They're going to be able to do the sidewalk cafes. Andrew, sidewalk cafes are based on street size, commercial districts. They are not in residential districts. They are not on side streets for very good reasons. They are not enough room. It's not in special districts like the Garment Center Special District. Not enough room on the sidewalks. I mean, we actually walk the streets. So I don't think that that is an argument. The only argument I see now is it's a done deal. And I think that is correct. Excuse me?
There's still COVID and people reluctant to eat in restaurants, although I do eat in restaurants.
This is going to remain until COVID is over. That is a given.
Well,
Respond when one of the co-chairs signals, I'll respond.
Yes, actually.
Andrew, yeah, you want to respond?
Andrew, on any of the beats, if you like to.
Louisa, I'm still listening to Louisa. You can finish.
1 second. I'm sorry.
Finish. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I'm not finished yet. I'm sorry. What I don't understand is it does seem to me, and I've been on a couple of discussions, more than half of the community boards in Manhattan have voted against this. There are problems in the very structure of them in terms of trash and rats that are very difficult to control and that have increased this. There are problems, of course, with bike lanes that we all know about, problems with servers crossing the bike lanes. I'm not sure what is the benefit of these if people could just have normal sidewalk cafes and eventually be within the restaurants again. And nobody's been able to explain this to me. And why are we encouraging this? Because it is just going to take away bike lanes, it's taking away parking. And the main thing is it's taking away our review of our neighborhood.
Thank you.
We're going to lose that.
Thank you. Did you want to respond, Andrew, or should we go on
Sure.
to?
Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, there's a, thanks, Louise. I mean, there's a lot to respond to. I mean, generally, I'd say like, I appreciate what you said. I think a lot of it's your opinion, not a fact that we shouldn't have it in specific neighborhoods. We shouldn't have certain places. We should have this versus that. I particularly really enjoy having the activity on the street. Our neighborhood, I would say, is probably more fortunate, and in many areas you could have sidewalk cafes, but we're talking about 5 boroughs and neighborhoods that have been historically restricted from having them. My family's bakery in Queens never did it because it was so expensive with the consent fees. I know places throughout the boroughs where there's L's, the elevated trains, and they were prohibited until COVID, and they've had it and it's been really successful. I think it brings more vibrancy to the street. I actually really like walking up Amsterdam Avenue and having activity on the sidewalk and in the roadway area. So you're free to disagree and not like it, but I really do, and know people do. So I think that's more of a debate about what the streetscape should look like than a factual statement of it should not be there or it's not appropriate. That's what I'd say on
What the
that.
discussion's about tonight. Thank you.
On the second part about not having review, I'm not sure where this keeps being brought up that the community board's not going to have any review. I mean, listen, again, I work on this professionally, but also just knowing it as an Upper West Sider and all of this stuff. Like, I think it would be hard to imagine, nothing's impossible, but very hard to imagine that the community board is going to be completely cut out of the review process, especially when the process has gotten a lot of feedback from community boards that they want to be in it, and the city council is going to have to vote on it. And even if they were, and I can't imagine they were, but if they were, as I mentioned before, we still have oversight when it comes to all the liquor licenses. I know that's not every establishment, but to say a lot of them do have it. And I think there should be community review.
I think that covers our issues.
Yeah, so I think that addressed it.
Yeah, let's move on then. We have a brand new member here, Anthony Thomas, and then I'm going to call Jay and Robert, SBA, and Doug. But Anthony, you've had your hand up.
Linda, committee member first. So Anthony, then talk, then we go to the non-committee members.
Okay, well, Anthony Thomas is our new committee member, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep. Nice to meet you all.
Trial by fire, dude.
Thank you so much. I mean, I think, Andrew, I just wanted to jump in and respond to Louisa's comments. And Louisa, thank you for sharing those, and certainly value your perspective given your work in the space. But just want to second everything Andrew just said. I do think that, as somebody who lives in the neighborhood and seeing what's happened to our restaurant businesses over the past now nearly 2 years, that giving them the ability to open up opportunities on the sidewalk has been incredibly valuable, I think, from both a business owner perspective as well as somebody who lives in the community. And, I dream of the day that we're not talking about COVID anymore, but with or without a pandemic, with or without a virus, I do think being able to provide this ability for businesses, obviously with, thoughtful policies and procedures around it, is going to be really, really important. So Andrew, you obviously work in this space. I do not. I would say I'm a professional eater, so I love to consume a lot of food, and be that inside, outside, on the sidewalk. I think all of that's really, really important and valuable to the Upper West Side. I'm glad we're talking about this because I do think, and Louisa, to your points, rats and cleanliness and all of those things need to be sorted out. And I'm sure that as we move from the temporary, process we've had to a more permanent thing, I hope that we can clear that out, because I don't want to speak for business owners, but I would assume that, folks like Jocelyn and her family on this call would appreciate actually some great frameworks to work within, which will actually be more helpful for business owners as well. So just wanted to share my thoughts on that.
Thank you. Okay, and then conforming to what Christian just said, Doug, you're our next speaker, and then I'm going to suggest we hear from Gail and our restaurateurs, and we go to non-committee members. Is that good for you, Christian?
Yes.
That's it. And I just wanted to say, I'm happy to, I raise my hand after Jay and Robert, even though they're not committee members. I'm happy to speak after they do. If
just speak, Doug.
Okay, so this is a comprehensive issue. One of the questions that Louisa brought up was, why is there a need? I can tell you that this need may change, but the restaurant clients that I work with have expressed to me that their indoor dining is no longer at the capacity that even they're legally allowed to, because customers are fearful. They do not want to sit as close to each other as they used to. God willing, we'll get past the pandemic and maybe one day we'll be able to go shoulder to shoulder. But many of the restaurants that I work with have expressed to me that even if they're allowed 74 people or whatever it is, they're down probably 50% capacity interior. So they still need it. So that's something that, at least at this time and for the foreseeable future, is going to be a factor. And the other thing is, just to my understanding and my interpretation, is that the other boards that, and I can't speak for all the other boards, but my understanding was the other boards that voted against it was voting against the text amendment. And my understanding was that even with our own board, that we were more, it wasn't that we were not in favor of the restaurant program. It was that we wanted to have the rules making revealed before we agreed to do away with that text amendment. I thought it was more fundamental, that process, than it was about, more than half of the boards in the city not approving open restaurants. It was more about the text amendment. There's so many other things that I could add to this, but I won't now. But as a lot of people know, I do work in this space. So perhaps I'll add to the conversation later on.
Thank you, Doug.
Thank you.
Gail, we're going to go to the restaurateurs, and we're going to go, I promise Jay and Robert after that, but Gail, let's hear from our new council member, a revered new council
member.
That's
okay, don't just stay away from the accolades.
Can't help it.
This is a topic that is incredibly important, particularly for Manhattan. I will say that as borough president, we obviously had a really great discussion at borough board. Borough board members stated, as I think you heard earlier from Doug, that there were, maybe generally consensus, but lots and lots of challenges in terms of implementation. Those, to the best of my knowledge, have not been worked out. There is a process. It's going through the process. I have to say that implementation is important. I want to hear what comes out of that DOT process and what is the general consensus from the hearings. I will say that from my perspective, the restaurants are still not doing well. I talk to restaurateurs all day long. But secondly, I have to say, I'm one of these, I want the streetscape to exist that has interest, and the restaurants provide that. However, this city is not well known for good oversight. I hope that changes with this administration. If you have graffiti, if you have no mechanism for keeping your space clean, etc., all the quality of life issues, there has to be oversight. And if you don't do it, you cannot have your outdoor space. Something has to be that kind of stick. If there's no stick, then there's no need for you to have that outdoor space. So I'm here as a supporter of the concept with many different types of oversight, many different types of operational implementation. But I have to say the concept I like. It just provides a different streetscape that is exciting. But without those caveats, it's not going to work. So I'm here under those auspices. And thank you very much for this great discussion.
Thank you, Gail. We would
Linda,
like
when appropriate, I want to say two quick things, put something in context whenever you're ready.
Okay, but we'd like to hear from some of the restaurateurs. We've got one on a committee. Josh, if you'd like to speak, I'll take notes. And then who else? What other restaurateurs do we have here tonight?
We have Jocelyn.
Jocelyn, okay. Josh, you want to speak, and then Jocelyn?
Well, I would just like to say, for those of you who weren't at the transportation committee last night, there was just talking about the inconsistency of a lot of the outdoor seating, and there are a lot of businesses that are doing everything they can to be compliant, to make it as presentable as possible. And I think while there are some bad apples out there, I do think that there are a lot of us that are trying to do the right thing, and it's not fair to lump all of us together. But I do believe that there needs to be a more uniform set of guidelines that's been spoken, because without that, people are kind of just doing whatever they want, and that leads to the just disarray when you walk down the street. So I completely understand what people's point is about the look and obviously there's issues with trash, as Peter brought up, and rats that everybody's brought up. But I think that I feel like in a way this discussion is a little bit premature, because I just really don't believe that DOT is gonna, I know I want to have faith, but I don't think that DOT really is looking for input. I think they're just going to decide what it's going to be, and we're going to have to comply with what they put out there. I hope that I'm wrong about that.
Me too.
But, no, but I'm just telling you how I feel. I definitely could be wrong about this, but I just don't. It's just based on what the response we get from DOT when they grace us with their presence at a meeting, that we don't really get a lot of good positive response or any response from them. And so I just think that they come because they have to, but they don't really take what we have to say with any kind of weight. And so I think we're unfortunately just in a waiting game here, and a lot of this discussion is premature. With that being, one more thing, with that being said, there's a lot of places, the places that I'm involved with are on Amsterdam Avenue. I need to be clear about that. It has been a definite boon for those places that when we couldn't have people inside, it kept them open, that they didn't end up losing their business and shutting down after putting in years and years of effort into this business and their community and providing for their families. And, while we couldn't have people inside, they were able to have people outside. And while they may not have been making a profit, they were able to pay their bills. And I think that, that says a lot about what the program has done for many people, because I think we'd have a lot more of those empty storefronts than we even have now had we not had this program in place. That's all.
Thank you. Thank you, Josh. Jocelyn, you're a restaurateur also, correct?
Yes.
Which restaurant is yours? That was the one that just presented tonight, Tropical Sensation.
Tropical Sensation, 953 in Amsterdam.
Gotcha.
So everything that Josh just said is basically hitting the head on the nail. I feel like a lot of DOT inspectors are not well trained either. And I feel like some of them pick and choose what they want to nitpick on certain tents. And like, I don't have much of a space because we are restricted since we are near a pump and there are businesses next to us. So the most we could fit in our space is about 6 people. And every month it's like, there's always someone nitpicking something, and it's not even enclosed all the way. And I've seen, a lot of other restaurants that have it enclosed all the way with no openings or anything like that. And I just feel like there's a lot of them that are untrained, and then we have only 24 hours to fix it. And I feel bad because there are other restaurants that have to break everything down and put it right back up. And it kind of discourages us because there are a lot of families, especially now with the mandate for the vaccines for children, there's a lot of families that do not want to eat inside because of that. So we do need the outdoor dining experience for everyone, but I feel like for some of us, the DOT is making it very hard.
You've heard that. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. Jay, you were next. Jay Adolph?
Yep. So bear with me. First thing is, I agree pretty much with everything that Louisa said, and I know she doesn't need me to defend her, but what she was talking about is much of it is not, in fact, and with respect to my good friend Andrew, what she was talking about is not opinion. Much of what she said, if not all of it, is fact. This program was initiated because of this horrible pandemic that descended on us and threatened the viability of not only the restaurant business, but many, many businesses, including small businesses of all kinds in our neighborhood and every neighborhood in the city. And it descended upon us at a time when there were no vaccines. It was out of control.
We know the history, Jay.
Yeah, well, okay. I've waited for this long, Linda.
I know,
and
I'm
you've
just
called on
asking
a lot
you
of
to
other
make your point.
people, so please, bear with me.
No.
A lot had been said, and I have a right to comment on it. The fact of the matter is that this was and is an emergency program designed to support this particular industry that was threatened with a business disaster because of it. And Doug said that it's still going on and it may drag on, and there's absolutely no reason why it can't be extended on an emergency basis as long as there's an emergency. But right now, circumstances are very different than when it was instituted. We have vaccinations now. We have indoor dining now. And this is an emergency program. It's singled out one industry. I don't know of anyone else.
That's not true.
Beyond the federal aid.
That's not true.
Beyond
There
those
is retail as
programs
well.
that are getting aid from the city in this regard. But okay, so the my second point is we cannot mix up sidewalk cafes with roadway restaurant. We've always had sidewalk cafes. This community board has always supported sidewalk cafes. We've always agreed that they're healthy for the neighborhood, and we voted in favor of them. But I remind everybody that for as long as I've been on this board has had a stated policy of not approving enclosed sidewalk cafes. And I would just raise two questions. What's the difference between an enclosed roadway cafe and an enclosed sidewalk cafe? And with all the other problems, the rats and the sanitation and the traffic safety issues that we've discussed, to me, these enclosed roadway restaurants are even worse than enclosed sidewalk cafes.
Thank you for your opinion. Thank you for sharing, Jay.
Okay, I'm not finished.
You're gonna almost finish.
I beg your pardon?
You are almost finished because we've got a lot of speakers tonight, Jay.
Well, you didn't interrupt anybody else.
I did. You just didn't.
Jay, continue. Let's see if we can wrap it up.
First of all, this board has not yet taken a vote on whether or not we approve of permanent roadway restaurants. We haven't taken that vote yet, and at some point we should. And all of the problems associated with them have been enumerated. I'm trying to keep an open mind, but we seem to be proceeding on the assumption that this is a given, that we support it, and we've never taken a vote on it, never. And that's a threshold question. So it's not premature to discuss these issues because we haven't seen the guidelines. In my opinion, it's almost getting to be too late because by the time the guidelines come, the train will have departed the station. And I think that we should point to a full board resolution at some point, not just to approve guidelines with the assumption that this is a program that we want to be permanent, but in fact, whether we want it to be permanent at all. And just one final observation that Arena brought up. That restaurant, if it's extending for that distance, is violating the current guidelines, which provide that no roadway restaurant can extend beyond the business frontage of that entity. So Arena, with your observation, that restaurant is in violation.
Thank
Now
you.
I'm finished.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Before we continue, I'd like to say something. I don't necessarily disagree with you, Jay, but the city voted on this program and approved it without getting any opinions from anybody. They just went ahead and did it.
That's right.
Now, having said that, my committee, this committee, we're going to focus on helping out get those out guidelines to be the best they can be. Now, the board can certainly, as a whole, we can certainly take the discussion about whether we approve or don't approve of the program and send a resolution to the city. But for this committee, we're just going to concentrate on helping out these guidelines.
Thank you, Christian. Should we call Robert next?
Yeah. Yes.
And then Andrew and Josh. Okay.
Yeah.
Robert Eskew.
Okay, thank you, Linda. When we got into all of this, my enthusiasm, as it is wont to be, was unfettered for outdoor dining. It's just a lot of fun, as Andrew, observed as well, and it livens the street and so on. However, when we began the discussion, and very happy to see that we're all really fully behind the whole idea of containing rats. You can't get rid of rats, but we can, between the different agencies, we will contain that particular problem. So that has sobered up my unfettered enthusiasm somewhat. However, several meetings ago, one community member rang the alarm, no pun intended, with what about fire trucks in the event of fire? And I really appreciate that Jocelyn's here tonight because she used a magic word. I haven't been to her restaurant, but I'll be up there in a few days because I live in Malecon, okay? So I'm gonna run up there as well. She has a pump in front of her store. Okay. Now, where I feel that we will contain the rat issue, which is a historical issue in all parts of the world, rats. I don't see how we can manage the logistical issue of fire trucks and fires. There was an alarm in my neighborhood. I'm on 94 in Amsterdam, and I could only hear it from my window. I didn't see it, but it was on in the lower 90s. So at 92nd, you have Gennaro, and then at 90, you have, I forget the name, but I've eaten there a lot. It's a Mexican restaurant also. And then you have Luciola, another block down, which is a high-end restaurant. Fire trucks doesn't have to be a 5 or 6 alarm fire. Take up the whole block. And they need a lot of time to put out fires. So what I want, it's not gonna change me. I'm gonna still be for outdoor dining. The pivotal issue becomes roadway, outdoor. You use your 9 feet, can you go into the roadway? That's the issue. For the economic reasons, you must go into the roadway because you need the space for more tables so you can make money to just make ends meet, as Josh pointed out, okay? But what about the fire trucks? One fire truck, 2-alarm fire, will take up the whole block. See? So we're gonna have to work this out, but, and as I say, it's not gonna change my mind, but that is such a critical issue with a small store like Tropical Sensation. The pump is right there. So the truck is there. Okay? And then the hoses and so that's what I want to hear, more discussion, and I want open discussions. And of course, FDNY, our heroes, and the city, other collaborating agencies are going to come up with plans. But I want to be the fly on the wall for every conversation around the logistics of fire control with respect to outdoor dining. That's my comment. That's my wish.
Thank you very much. Okay, so here we've got 3 committee members with their hands up, and then we have 2 non-committee members speaking again.
And before we continue, I'd like to say there, the current program is not perfect, and there's many problems with it, and not everybody is complying with the regulations. We want that's something that we can address, but right now at this moment, we want to talk about what the future will be in terms of the permanent program, how we're going to provide input for that. Truth of the matter is that there's many aspects of it that we're going to have to consider. A lot of it having to do with safety, as Gail was saying. We're going to have to consider, so there's a lot of things we're going to be able to talk about. And as you said, we have to be concerned. But that's how we want ideas. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, Andrew, Josh, Doug.
So, I actually thank for Robert and listening to Jay and Louisa and their comments. And I just have to say personally, being on different committees and listening to all these conversations, they seem to be very circular conversations because we're talking about things that exist in a temporary environment, an emergency program in unprecedented circumstances, but we're not actually commenting on what the permanent program is going to look like. It seems generally, and I don't like to generalize, but generally speaking, people understand this is a temporary emergency program put in for the point to help restaurants and do all of this other stuff. We're kind of commenting back and forth on the issues of this temporary program, not on what the permanent program will be like. I think generally speaking, as people have said, the sidewalk cafes, we've had sidewalk cafes. I don't think the changes to the text amendment impacts that much, and I could be wrong, but I don't think it impacts that much in our community. Most areas where restaurants are allowed to currently have sidewalk cafes. It may change the application process and the cost for restaurants, and there may be some neighborhoods where you could have sidewalk cafes where you can't. Where it seems like most of the feedback is coming back, right, is the roadway seating, about enclosed, unenclosed. This was always intended to be an outdoor dining program. It was launched in June. We were hoping the pandemic would be behind us, but then it got cold. People started enclosing. Then they started unenclosing them, but it got warm. Then it got cold again and they enclosed them and they didn't have much money. So what you see in the roadway now, I would hope is not a representation of what any permanent roadway structure would look like. In transparency, I am on a committee that was formed somewhat with the city, but with AIA, which is the American Institute of Architects, with RPA, the Regional Plan Association, the Design Trust for New York, and several others that are experts in design, public planning of the public space. And we're doing all of these different panel discussions, open calls to gather feedback from experts to design what the permanent roadway structures will look like. Everyone, Jay, Louisa, Marina, everyone's comments are very legit. I would just suggest that what we see right now is not a representation what I believe would be or what I think personally should be a reflection of what the roadway seating will look like. We're not talking about a permanent program where you have outdoor dining that's essentially indoor dining.
Right.
So I think that's an important context. And I think until we see exactly what the city is proposing, it makes it difficult to say, we like this, we don't like that, we want this change, have you thought about this? Now it just seems like the ongoing debate about like, I don't like this roadway structure. Robert made very important points, like you're not allowed to be in front of a fire hydrant. There's multiple different types of obstructions in compliance with federal Americans with Disability Act requirements, with New York State and New York City human rights laws and other requirements about distance. Granted, not everything is completely being enforced because we're in a pandemic and things have been different. But I think if you speak with any restaurateur during, but even pre-pandemic, like the city is not known other than maybe during the pandemic for letting things go. If anything, it's the opposite, where they find the hell out of you, where things are always changing, just like you've heard even with this program. So I just think we should be talking about it, in that context, not saying that like that ugly roadway structure that you don't like is going to be here for the next 20 years. I don't think that's the reality. And I think if the city ended up proposing that, it would be completely within the right of the community board and members to say, I don't like that and I don't want that. But to suggest that what we see happening now is being made permanent is just not the situation. If it becomes the situation, then critique it, but that's not the situation.
Yeah.
So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew, I think what we were trying to come up with was more of like a wish list. more like this is what we would like to see, and offer our opinions and our ideas to DOT and city planning and city council before they make this permanent. Say, oh, you know, this is an interesting thing. They don't want a three-sided, you know,
And I appreciate that. Look, I appreciate, I'm just saying, but that's not what the conversation in any of these meetings that I've been privy to is. It's basically like people just saying, I don't like this, I don't like that, I don't like that. And then other people saying, I like this, I like this, I like that. If we want to come up with some suggestions, whether it's proactively proposing, we want X, Y, Z, I think that's what the committee should do. If we want to wait until the city proposes a program that and then comment on it, I think that's what we should do. But it seems, in my opinion, doesn't help progress. You know, don't talk about it, be about it. It's very easy for us all to complain about what we like or support what we like and complain about what we don't like. And that's human nature. But I just think it would behoove us all to say, okay, let's say we either don't want any roadway seating, and that's your personal opinion, or I want roadway seating, but I want it to be different in these ways. And I think that would be super helpful. And I know that's what you're trying to do here. So I give you both.
I mean, I think, you know, this, what we've seen are some bad actors. We'd like to see what we heard tonight. We'd like to see more oversight. We can't tell them what to do. And certainly, and to Irena's point too, there will be a time when we will be responding to their proposed plan. But in the interim, as a BCI committee, if we could, working with restaurants, propose some ideas that could help the restaurants and you know, without and kind of avoid some of the punitive measures, that would be swell.
Yeah,
so
and that's fine. That's what I'm saying. So if, you know, if it is Jay's opinion, there should be no roadway dining, that is his opinion. And he's entitled to it, and he should present that to everyone. But if he believes, and sorry, Jay, I'm not trying to put words in your mouth, but if Jay said, I think in some capacity there should be roadway dining, he could say, I think there should be roadway dining in these different ways. And maybe that could be like, what we do is come back and saying, I either don't want it or I want it, and it would be better in this way.
Right.
Versus
Here are
just,
some of the improvements. Exactly.
You know,
this is how we can make the program better.
Sorry, Jay. I hope that was fair.
And then they'll come back. And now it's Josh. Let's hear from you.
Briefly, Andrew, I just want to say thank you, because I had a lot to say, but you gave me perspective when you said we're talking in circles here, because I believe that we are talking in circles. And to back up many of the points that people brought up, and I want to say it because I said it before, this discussion is extremely premature because we have no idea what this is going to look like tomorrow. But I do want to say that we want to have progress in the city. We want to grow. We want to move forward. And not everybody's in favor of that. Some people, you know, I always want to say you're living in the past, man, but we got to move forward and we got to have progress, and whatever it turns out to be, we're going to have to adapt to it and grow with it. Not everybody's going to like everything, but to keep talking about what we don't like today seems counterproductive to me. And that's all I have to say. Linda, you're muted.
Okay, go ahead, Jay.
No, I was good.
I just like to hear what we do like, and then get some ideas on how we think it could be better. That's all.
Okay, so can I just briefly?
Yeah, go ahead, Jay. Yeah.
So Andrew, I don't mind at all you're invoking my name in vain. And I actually agree with you, and in some ways you made the point more articulately than I did when I talked about the fact that the board has yet to make a threshold decision as to whether we support outdoor dining. And I think really outdoor has become a misnomer for all of the reasons you said. It's pretty helter-skelter, and I think at this point most of it is indoor. But I agree with you that we should have we have to make at some point a threshold decision as to whether we support restaurants in the roadway or we don't. And truthfully, I mean, it gives me some comfort to hear your explanation about what we have now not being taken for granted as to what we'll have if we have a permanent program. I agree with you, but the operative word there is permanent. And once it's permanent, it's there, whether it's 3-sided or 4-sided or what have you. And I like to keep an open mind on these things. And my fundamental belief is that roadways are not for restaurants. Roadways are for transportation and for efficient and safe transportation, which supports commerce, which is the lifeblood of this city. And my feeling is that, God willing, someday we'll be back to normal or very close to it. And indoor dining will return and restaurants will meet their capacity. Or if they want to expand, God knows we have enough empty space in this area and around the city for them to expand. But that there are so many problems with these roadway restaurants that fundamentally I believe that they don't belong. I do support keeping some measure of an emergency program going for restaurants and other businesses. These are unique times and they should get all the help they need. But ultimately, if and when we get back to normal, we should get back to normal. And normal is not having rows and rows of structures clogging our roadways. So we don't necessarily disagree.
Thank you so much, Jay. Okay, let's go
You're
over.
so welcome, Linda.
Doug and then Peter. And what we're going to do after this is we're going to conclude this discussion. What we have to figure out is if we do want to put together, and we can do that through email, if we want to put together some ideas and share them so that we could maybe write up not a resolution, but some ideas that we could proffer at a joint committee meeting further down the road. Okay, so that's where we stand now. I pitch stories for a living, so I'm pretty proactive about this stuff. And so I like the idea of writing something, all of us together, so you can email Christian and me and we can all, participate with ideas that you have moving forward. I see Miranda's hand is up now too. So let's go to Miranda because she hasn't spoken tonight, then Doug, then Peter, then we'll conclude this discussion.
I guess this is somewhat related, but a little bit adjacent to this discussion. I wanted to ask about the propane stuff that I know we had talked about in a previous meeting. And Andrew, I know that you're involved on the push for that. And I'm wondering if maybe a more tangible way we can support these restaurants for those of us who, are supporting the outdoor experience, what that looks like. And if the board, if there's any, interest in getting involved as a committee or things like that. So.
Actually, I would say let's put a pin on that and address it on the new business so that we can finish this section. Go ahead, Doug.
I'm sorry, did you say me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to just try to organize my thoughts a little bit. Obviously, there's a lot been said. We have gone in circles a little bit, but what I'd like to say is that I do think that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. So I'm personally in favor of being proactive and reactive. Perhaps we don't want to, in terms of being proactive and making, instead of saying what we hate or what we like, I'll just say affirmatively, because I'll just start it off. I think, and we even said that at the Transportation Committee last night, which is safety is first. And I think there's a lot of subtopics regarding safety and the open seating program, whether it be roadway. So we obviously, and I've heard this at I've been on multiple discussions and I've listened in for during city council hearings, and a lot of concern about crossing through the bike lane and that conflict. There were some solutions that were brought up. That's something that is a big concern to me. Absolutely, I think it's already going to be addressed by federal law and by city and state law, but accessibility for disabled people, absolutely a top priority. Sanitation is obviously a priority, which I think should be baked into if a restaurant has the privilege of having seating, whether it be sidewalk seating, roadway seating, they have a responsibility, and I think that that they should maintain that responsibility. That should be contingent with keeping their seating. As far as the fire department and otherwise, I mean, one of the things that I've observed is that there are some cafes, roadway, that have been contiguous almost an entire city block, and there are residential entrances in the middle of that. And so, most importantly, if an ambulance, an emergency vehicle needed to get right through to pick up someone, I'd like to see a break where the residential entrance is, because to me that's most important. What's still important but less important is pickup and drop-offs for residential for Ubers, but there are people with disabilities that need to get in and out of their apartment building. So that's something that I'd like to see addressed. Because right now, if an ambulance were to have to pick up somebody mid-block and there's a contiguous roadway dining, they'd have to bring that stretcher all the way up the block, right? That's a problem. And I've seen that examples in our neighborhood. So I trust that that's going to be addressed in the new rules making. And I'll wrap this up. Jay mentioned something, and again, I have great respect for Jay, but I'm going to have to respectfully disagree with something. He said that it's always been this community board's policy of not approving or liking enclosed cafes. I've absolutely heard that stated many, many times, and I've seen many board members have either abstained or voted against the renewal. I'm not crazy about them, but I really do believe that this board and committee should vote on each application on its own merits. To say that as a blanket, even if it's an as of right, to say that we won't do it, again, respectfully, is one of the discussions we had last night regarding the district attorney. Can the district attorney, blanketly say, I'm not going to force something that's already law? So for our board to say we are going to blanketly reject every single applicant, even though it's an as of right, I don't think it's fair. I think every applicant should be addressed on its own merits. Perhaps the majority of them we don't approve, but maybe some we do.
That is a stated board policy, Doug. I can.
Jay, it's actually not. And what it is, and when the renewals.
Linda, excuse me.
No, Jay,
I can show
you're
it.
muted.
I can
Jay,
show it.
Come on.
I can
Jay,
show it to you.
No,
in
Jay,
writing.
I've been writing this a lot long. I've been on the board a lot longer than you have. So let me say this. This discussion is here. He's absolutely right. We don't approve new enclosed cafes.
Well, first of all, wait, hang on. Since I had the floor, can I just say, and
I'll show you the guidelines.
Doug, you're on, Doug.
Hang on. Listen,
Doug, you're on.
First of all, what I heard at some of the hearings was that that the new rules will prohibit any new enclosed cafes. Whether that is manifest itself, I don't know. I do know there's a lot of pros and cons for the enclosures, but we've had cafe, if you look at the movie Annie Hall, the final scene is shot in an enclosed cafe across from Lincoln Center, which is now, PJ Clark's. But anyway, I think the good news to Jay is that I don't believe there are going to be any new ones.
Right.
And a lot of them we've lost. So I don't think you have to worry about that. I'm just saying.
I'm not worried about it, Doug.
Okay,
Okay,
Jay,
I just, my general. Okay.
But I think what you just did was make all of the points that we needed to write up. I just want to thank you so much.
Yeah, look, my point, even if it is a written policy, and I would absolutely stipulate and concede to Jay, Jay's been on the board much longer than I have, so I have a great respect.
As long as I have.
But I would say that if okay, you can show it to me, but even if it is the case, I don't think that's really, I don't think that having a blanket policy to an as of right is appropriate. I think every applicant.
Okay.
I'll shut up.
Okay, Doug, we're going off topic. Jay, I'm not asking you to speak a moment. Okay, here's what we have. We do not approve new applications for unenclosed sidewalk cafes. We have consistently approved renewals for occupied restaurants with enclosed sidewalk cafes.
Correct.
So that's the clarification. What I want to thank you here is that all of the points that I was trying to get us to do tonight, all of the positive things that you were saying, that's what I'm going to write up. Thank you. So, and let's close Peter and move into business.
Okay, thanks for letting me speak. This is a really valuable committee, and we need to move forward. One of the things that I really love about our neighborhood is that north of 96th Street, I'll speak about, is that there has been this accommodation. Let's see, Robert had asked about fire engines, and we don't have set rules. We had 5 engines, with one of them with an extended ladder going up to the roof of the building. It was happening with people all around, and with 3 restaurants on that side of the street and 4 restaurants on the other side of the street. And it worked. The firemen made it work. The people around made it work. The restaurants supported what they were doing. It all happened on a beautiful Saturday morning, and nobody was hurt. We didn't follow all the rules. We let cars go through a closed section of Amsterdam because it made sense. And I guess what all that means to me is that going forward, that being able to accommodate each other and go slow where we need to, and develop rules that have some ability to be worked around or worked with, is going to be important for the future of this neighborhood, because just getting into the situations where there's conflict and rigidity has just been really detrimental, where we've run into it with some of the agencies. So I don't know, that's a convoluted way of saying things, but
That's another thing that we can talk about, common sense rules. And Doug, here, I just want to recap. Your points were, here's what we would endorse: safety, sanitation, better sanitation, access to it, egress for ambulances. Now I can't read my hand, but develop those rules. So there's some really great points that we can really kind of, we can embellish on and really give some decent suggestions and make some, make our points that can help DOT when they're writing this. And of course, we will be reactive. So it's about being proactive and reactive. And now I think it's time to come to new business, guys.
Okay, in new business, Doug had mentioned earlier to us that he had a point to make, and then Miranda will have a point to make also, and anybody else after that.
Sure,
Go ahead,
thank
Doug.
you. Right, so I brought this up before, so it's not new business, but I think, and I spoke to Stephen, and he actually suggested that I bring it up tonight. I think we have to be prepared, and we need to be the smartest people in the room regarding cannabis licenses. And so it's here, it's the law, it's coming. The Office of Cannabis Management has been staffed. The rules making, I believe, is forthcoming. So speaking of policy and board consensus and everything else, I do think that BCI is probably going to be at least, if not the committee that's going to be reviewing these applications. I'm not exactly sure, but there's the licenses obviously are going to be dispensaries and consumption, non-consumption. And I think that we need to get prepared. I think what we probably should do, and I open up the discussion to everyone here, is to get very clear on what the laws are. And for those laws, obviously this is state law. So I think we should speak to elected officials that are familiar with it. There are some elected officials in the city that are even more knowledgeable than respectfully some of our own electeds. And with their permission, perhaps we can invite people that can better inform us. I've attended some excellent seminars from attorneys. In fact, through Andrew's organization, but through my own company. So there's a lot of really good information. I think we should all know what these laws are going to mean for our community, and what they don't mean. I think there's a lot of confusion. And I'll just throw out this one thing. There are a lot of CBD stores and stores that are throughout our neighborhood that some of them, in my opinion, are very ugly and they have bongs and all sorts of things. Those are not none of them are licensed. Licenses have not been issued yet. So anyone who says that they are licensed or they're doing it, they are lying. And if they are doing it, they're breaking the law. One on 71st and Amsterdam, I have a real problem with because, I believe what they're trying to do is create the impression that they are licensed and somehow think that that's going to, I don't really know what they're doing, but it's a misrepresentation. So anyway, I think we need to be prepared for it. It's here. It's not coming. It's here, and we need to know how to prepare for it. Thanks.
Doug, could you send Christian and Andrew, Christian and me a list of the elected officials who are involved with this and some of the law firms? And we could start that dialogue very quickly, maybe in the next meeting.
Sure, I'm sure Andrew Ridgie would know. And I mean, Liz Kruger has been a proponent of this for 25, 30 years. And I saw her speak and I was very impressed by the amount of information. It was just chock full of information. Now, she's not our elected official, but I learned so much from her. That's all. I just learned. And whether you like it or not, we need to know all the facts. That's all.
Well, then we will invite her. And if you can send us a list of folks, we will invite them. Oh, gosh. Okay. Andrew and Irena.
Irena was first, I think.
Irena, as long as it's about the cannabis, Go ahead.
Irena?
Thank you, Doug, for bringing this item to the committee. Just a couple of comments and then a suggestion. One is that I think that there is amongst, in my neighborhood alone, there's probably 6 CBD shops within like 5 blocks. I mean, there's one like, they're like doubling up on a block. And I think the reason they're doing that is that I think there's the expectation or anticipation that they'll be able to apply for a dispensary license. I think some of these people are renting out these spaces in anticipation of it. And they are in some cases doubled and tripled up on, within, 2 or 3 blocks, which is of concern because basically, to your point, it's just bongs, it's just paraphernalia. One store put some snacks in the window, but they're basically, smoke shops. The other comment I wanted to say or recommendation is that perhaps this committee could have a subcommittee to start doing some of the research on it. And the other comment I had is whether the liquor license requirements or guidelines, regulations, whether those might apply to the dispensary. I'm not talking about the consumption places, but whether there'll be, like, for instance, they can't exist within certain yards of a school or a church, things like that. But I agree with you. I don't think we should wait. And I know that, for instance, on Long Island, they've already started holding hearings about the consumption and dispensaries, and they're meeting a lot of opposition. So I think the sooner we start to do our research and bring in some of the experts on this, the better, so that we're not in a situation where we are right now with the outdoor dining, but that, to Linda's point, that we are prepared in advance for what is going to come in the next 2 years.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I think we can talk to Stephen about a subcommittee. I think that is a really swell idea. So, I mean, Christian,
that could be a task force, but that's another day's topic. Andrew, you want to talk about the cannabis?
Yeah, quickly. I mean, yes, I've seen a lot of stores that have popped up. I think a lot of people smoke pot more than anyone thinks, and I think people really love it. And I think, frankly, I'm not going to get into my competition of pot versus alcohol or other drugs, but I think this is just a response, and a lot of people feel more comfortable now that it's finally been legalized to kind of be out of secret or whatever that many people felt when it came to cannabis. So I think it's just a natural evolution of society, like we've seen elsewhere around the globe and in states and cities around the country, where it's just part of society, just like having a glass of wine is, and all of these things. So I think it's going to take time for the city to adjust naturally. And I think some people will be a little bit more comfortable than others, but I think it's just a fabric of what's happening, that it's going to be more front and center. With that said, I think that those are some really good points that everyone made. And I would suggest maybe two types of presentations. I think there's probably people that are interested in what does the legalization of cannabis in New York State mean in all of its different capacities. That would be a nice presentation, not a debate, since it already is the law of the land. And then the secondary presentation could perhaps be to BCI or the appropriate committees and any other members that wanted to join, about what role does the community board have in the new consumption and dispensary licenses that will be issued. You know, going back to not going into circles and giving information that's actually going to materially help people, I think is going to be very helpful. So I would think those would be great presentations, and agree with everyone.
I totally
Thank you.
agree. Thank you.
So Miranda, you have an issue you want to talk about?
We're talking propane.
Yeah, I just wanted to raise that again. I think the last time we spoke about it, Andrew might not have been here. And I just wanted to ask about that, because I think it's something that if anyone else on this board is concerned about, we could be, whether it's like a supporting role in other people who are leading legislation. I just don't know, but I do think it's like I don't want these restaurants to get shafted when they put in investments last year. And we're kind of, it's sort of deja vu, right? I'm sure. I mean, I know I've been eating outside the past few weeks. And so I feel like, if we can support restaurants in a way that seems the changing legislation seems unfair to them. So.
Andrew, have you got a response?
Sure. Yeah, no, thanks, Brenda. Yeah, we're working, through my job, trying to get another temporary allowance to use propane. Last year, they were allowed without incidents. Everywhere else in the state of New York, they're allowed. Most cities around the country, we've been looking at them. They either don't really have regulations, or they are pretty flexible, especially even compared to what was allowed last year under the temporary allowance. I believe the Adams administration is working on trying to bring it back, but trying to figure out exactly what the rules and regulations would be. So I think if people were inclined to support that, they should certainly contact our city council member. I think Gail left. There is a bill introduced by Council Member Keith Powers, who represents Stuyvesant Town and the East Side. It could be done through legislation, or the mayor could do essentially an executive order. So I'd say, contact Gail and let her know if you support or feel differently. You could also contact, the mayor's office and let them know that you are supportive or not, or have different feelings about it. But I would hope that in the next couple of weeks at the most, there'll be a final determination on it, because obviously we're in mid-January, and it needs to be. So I can say the city's working on it. I know that there just hasn't been a final determination.
Hey, Andrew, was it banned when the sheds, because they used to have them all the time in unenclosed sidewalk cafes, but were they banned because the sidewalk sheds were so close to the top of the propane
No.
devices that they became fire hazards?
No, so propane heaters were never permitted in the city of New York. You could use natural gas. So if you go oh no, she's gone. But so if you look at like the Smith or anything over in Lincoln Center, you'll see they have heat lamps, but they're hardwired. So there'll actually be a pipe. So that's allowed. That takes permitting. It's very expensive. It's not the type of investment that most restaurants would make when they're operating under a temporary emergency program, and it also takes time. You are allowed to use electric heaters that you've seen many people use. Some are okay, but they don't warm you as much as propane. Obviously, running electric can be expensive and everything. Propane was allowed just during the state of emergency. So that was a temporary allowance. And then last year, it basically expired and wasn't renewed. And now we're back in the situation that Miranda explained about, where more people are eating outdoors, and a lot of restaurants could really use them. And I think the other woman from the restaurant mentioned earlier, where if you have kids, you know, I'm not passing judgments on anyone's opinion about vaccines, but, you know, there are many people, they may be vaccinated, but their children aren't vaccinated yet, and their only option is to eat outdoors because it was expanded to kids, the Key to NYC vaccination requirement. So it would be very helpful for restaurants.
Well, thank you, Andrew. So unless anybody else have anyone make any other comment, I think we can end the meeting.
Okay, so it's 8:35. Thank you all for your time. And thank you all for this really important and lively conversation, and your participation was absolutely similar, absolutely important. And Seema, thank you for coming. I still wish you were a member of our committee.
And of course, you could do a resolution if you wanted.
Me
The
too.
board could do a resolution on.
Yeah, the board, tonight was not about a resolution tonight.
No, I know. I was just,
Ideas.
I didn't want to not fully answer Miranda's question. I mentioned what she could do as an individual, but of course, as a community board or a committee, we can do resolutions and support or otherwise of things such as propane.
Also, by the way, this is the main agenda item for Wednesday's land use meeting as well, next week.
Really?
Yeah.
Propane?
No, sorry,
No,
just the open
Open
restaurant.
restaurant.
Oh, yeah, no. Transportation, land use, and BCI were each having individual meetings. And then we're going to get together for a discussion. I believe it'll be a town hall.
Oh,
So
got it.
it'll be a big thing, but the whole idea tonight was it's so that we all have different perspectives and we all have different purviews in our committees. And so, for example, we may be more open to BCI because we work with restaurants and residents. So we may be more open to the curbside than, let's say, transportation. So these were different issues. I think what Doug brought up was like so sensible. This was the kind of thing that we do want DOT to think about. It's like, yeah, think about safety. Yeah, that stretcher that has to go all the way down the block to get to somebody. That's crazy. So, maybe we'll see curbside restaurants not being contiguous. Maybe they'll have to be an opening in between. Those are things that, that we can contribute to the discussion. What I would like to see for every BCI member is, if you have ideas, shoot them to Christian and me, or you could, copy everyone, and we'll continue this discussion offline. And until we come up with some ideas that we can really propose to the two other, for the joint committee meeting and for the town hall, because I think it's an important discussion and we do have a unique perspective.
Linda, just a reminder that transportation passed the resolution calling on DOT to come up with some plans to deal with the restaurants contiguous to bike lanes. They've already passed that resolution. So
Okay, I wasn't talking to contiguous to bike lanes. I was actually talking about them abutting each other so that they don't, there's no
whatever, that was
ambulances.
raised
I
as an
appreciate that.
issue.
Thank you for that. So
Thank
that's
you,
good to know. Again, that's a very different perspective. We're not talking bike lanes here. We're talking about maybe they shouldn't be pushed up next to each other. So, because that's a restaurant thing.
Where,
Okay,
yeah,
so-
where there's a residential entrance in the middle is what was. my
Right, okay, so that illustrates the different perspectives. And so I'm hoping everybody will shoot some ideas over here. Thank you very much.
In closing, thank you, Anthony. Welcome to the committee.
Yes, welcome.
We'll see you all next time, okay?
Trial by fire.
Have a good night.
Hey, Anthony, what do you do for a living? What's your day job?
Professional eater, I think you said.
Exactly. No, when I'm not eating, I work at a legal tech startup. I head up business development for them.
Gotcha. Cool.
Were you a
Okay.
business owner on the Upper West is what I thought? Or did I not hear that correctly?
No, Doug, I work at a startup, not a business owner.
The startup.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
Okay,
welcome
thank you.
aboard. This is pretty
Welcome.
exciting. Thank
Thanks,
you.
everyone.
Have a
Good
good
night.
evening.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
Bye-bye.